You could have sustainable agriculture programs that converge with medical assistance program, for instance. Now, to achieve that, we needed to work with reliable and trustworthy local partners to build these programs, assessing real needs, identified needs. And the most important approach here is to work with these partners in a way that you are going to empower them. You are going to provide them with all the tools that in the end, these programs will be fully theirs, not ours, but theirs. And the best tool you can provide them is knowledge. And that's why for Green Shoots, from the beginning, the focus really has been on the transfer of knowledge. Knowledge is more valuable than money because it's also more sustainable. And this is why we've been building these volunteering programs and have had the great fortune of fantastic volunteers contributing during all these years. So later on and during the rest of this week, when you say you'll bring us across all these volunteering programs and also make us meet some of these volunteers. And last but not least, as I said, knowledge is more important than money, but obviously we still need a little bit of money to make everything work efficiently. And this is also why this week is an opportunity to do some fundraising in a smart way with some match funding from a long time sponsors of Green Shoots. As a kind of closing point of this introduction, I also want to thank yourself, Moise, and the whole team of trustees and all the volunteers who have contributed for 10 years to this journey together. We remain a very small charity, but when one looks at the numbers, the impact numbers, it adds up. And for some people, we are huge. So I think, in the end, you have a choice that you can make in life. And either you decide, I'm not going to do anything, or yes, I'm going to do something, and I'm going to try and do something. And even if it's a small thing, it's worth it because it will contribute to changing someone's life, and that has no price. So that's it for me as a word of introduction, and I'll hand over back to you.
Hi, thanks, Jean-Marc. You might have thought I was trying to make a little exit. I just went to close my door because it was banging. So great to have you all here today. We've got, we're live on Facebook, so hopefully lots of other people are also joining us online there. The session is being recorded, so it will go online later on for others to enjoy and sort of get a feel for what we speak today about. And today is mostly just an introduction. As Jean-Marc said, we're kind of recapping everything that we've done in the last 10 years. I feel quite lucky to have been part of Green Shoots' journey for the last 10 years in different ways. And so today is just basically, we have new friends joining who don't know about us, but also people that have been involved from the beginning. So it's going to be a nice recap. So I'll begin. So an introduction to Green Shoots, as Jean-Marc was saying, we are a small charity. We want to foster sustainable development by focusing on projects that promote holistic development. We look at economic development, food and agriculture, education, and medical aid. So during the week, we've split up the week in different events, virtual events, not in person, unfortunately. And each day focuses on a specific part of our program. So we put up more details on how to join. It's the same call link every day. So if you haven't signed up, you can just log in 12 o'clock every day for the rest of the week. And you'll find out more about in-depth about each work. So our food and agriculture program is in Cambodia and the Philippines. Our healthcare work is in Myanmar, Vietnam, and Kyrgyzstan, and we'll take you through a journey of that. And we've done lots of education loans and social entrepreneurship work in India and Nepal. And you'll get to hear more about that. So a little bit more on our interventions. We focus on, as we said, holistic work. So we look at, overlapping issues, local poverty cycles, and try to really have this targeted approach with local partners. So each program is run and delivered through a local organization that understands those issues, possibly works with government organizations. So interventions can be long-term. So even if we are to leave or change hands or change the way that we work, those organizations can continue. So we've also worked in Nepal. This was primarily as a response to the earthquake. It was a short-term partnership, but also in India, we have our partner, and we'll talk about them more on Wednesday. And then finally, our work in Cambodia and the Philippines, which we will talk a little bit more about on Thursday and then also on Friday. So our financial activity so far, I'm stuck with the graphs, unfortunately, but you get a good idea about our balance sheet. We've had some really great years, some years where, financial activity has tapered, and a lot of it is to do with things like Brexit, but also COVID. We've managed to sort of survive. COVID has been a terrible sort of taking a blow for lots of small organizations, but we've sort of managed to stay afloat, continue our work, and also change strategies. And during the week, you'll also hear what new projects and things we're introducing. One of the key things for us is to build our reserves for this year, have more unrestricted funds for the coming years. And this week and today is a day for us to be completely transparent with people that are new to us and people that have worked with us for the past 10 years. And so we are actively fundraising this week, and we'd be great to have everyone's contribution. So our healthcare work, our charitable expenditure, the things that we spend money on is volunteer missions. So we would send people for 5 months to 3 months to work in Myanmar with clinics and really make a difference in the provision of healthcare and the teaching and changing of guidelines and doing audits in clinics. So all the work that they would experience in the NHS, they would take that to Myanmar. Another way that we work in healthcare is through fellowships. So doctors are chosen in our countries of operation, and they would come here for fellowships at the Royal Free Hospital and also Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. Finally, another way is through large-scale workshops. And today was the first time I'm doing a virtual event, and I was remembering the buzz that you would have when trying to deliver a physical event and you're kind of running around. But I just had to sit at my desk and just press a button and go live. So it's a very different experience, but the workshops would be catering to 50 to 80 people during a week. Every day it's presentations and lots of speaking sessions. So we've those are large scale events, and we've been lucky to have great donors for them. Oh, this has moved a little bit, but this is for our work in India. And this is quite different. We facilitate the sponsorship of children in educational settings in India, and it's primarily the provision of funds and facilitating relationships with sponsors in the UK. And then our agricultural loan and our agriculture and education project. So this is our work in Cambodia, where we've been active in schools, setting up vegetable gardens, running rice fields, and also finally our agriculture center, which is open for volunteers. It's a community center that trains farmers and young people in skills. Just a few impact numbers. Our focus primarily on volunteering and interns and the support that we get, but also provide to people. Mentoring forms the time that we spend on university graduates and sort of training them in anything from grant writing to providing them an experience of working in a charity. We have lots of volunteers in London. Nancy's here on the call, and she's going to be with us for the rest of the week. But similarly to her, we've had lots of fundraising and event experience from volunteers in London. We've had volunteers in the field that have gone to Myanmar or Cambodia. And so, yeah, nearly more than 60,000 hours of volunteering in the last 10 years. I'm sure there's more that I haven't accounted for. But finally, volunteering in Myanmar, we sent 13 doctors to Myanmar. These are doctors, nurses, and pharmacists. They work in clinics. They have extremely rigorous, grueling hours of sort of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Travel in clinics in the sort of outskirts. They've trained doctors that come in through the clinic system, and they provide mentoring support to them, guiding them on their careers. These doctors are usually fresh grads that are coming out of a very kind of unequal education system. So to have an NHS doctor guide you for almost 12 months of the year is sort of a huge benefit. And through these doctors, they've been able to provide sort of better services to clinics, within clinics, to doctors, to patients coming from low income settings. So it's been sort of a great experience. We've been running it for the last 7-8 years, and it's an excellent partnership, and you'll hear more about it tomorrow. And finally, volunteering in Cambodia. So just in the last 4 years, we've hosted 25 volunteers. They've given weeks of volunteering, from constructing the Agri-Tech Center, getting involved in design or engineering, but also having come visit, make videos, and give us all these beautiful photos that you're going to see for the rest of the week. And we've had 7 countries represented, people coming from Brazil, from the US, from London, and yeah, all over. And they've completed 8 structures, which you get to see on Thursday. So volunteering in Cambodia is something that we've slowly nurtured, and I think it's sort of making its space there, and hopefully just waiting for COVID and things to settle down, and we can sort of start that going again. So again, as I said, during this week, you'll hear about the people that have built our programs with us, guided through us, or delivering them with our local partners. You'll see the vegetables and produce that we've grown and sold in communities, and also the partners that we've worked with. And they range from, global partners to in-country partners. And yeah, so what I'll do is I will play a video, and how do I do this? I'll figure it out. Sorry for this slightly techie error. Here it is. Great. So I think that's most for us to share with you all today. And we're happy to take questions and sort of have more of a discussion. And many of you have been to the project. Some of you would like to go. And so, yeah, so I think we can use this as a space to talk more, give you more feedback. And then, yeah. So Mark, if you have more to add.
Yeah, I would say that, with the passage of time, some of us have become parents, and so some of you have kids who are probably of age to go through some of these experiences. And we've already had as volunteers of Green Shoot some kids of friends of ours, so we welcome more. Obviously, today the conditions for traveling are not yet gathered. When things clear up a little bit, we can provide a fantastic environment for your children to discover what the relationship between humans and the earth, the soil, can be, and how we can make it a symbiotic relationship. So don't hesitate to send us your kids. Ideally 18 plus. Okay,
Yeah.
but we've done younger, but we would prefer age 18 or older. And we take big kids as well, age 50, 60, 70 plus.
Yeah, and so yeah, during the week we'll have more volunteers join us, and we'll have sort of people that have given their time to the project, and some of them have sent us videos, but yeah. And then I think if people have sort of more questions about what we plan to do, we're happy to take them. During the week, we some of the what plans you have for scale in India is one question that's been asked. And this, it's true, I think we've toyed with the idea of doing lots of different work in India. Right now we work with a partner called Shiksharat, which is based in Delhi. And we primarily support the sponsorship of young kids through loans and sponsorship rather. So they are studying in government schools, but then they come and have an after school program at this space. And in the past, we've sort of thought about sort of expanding our partnership with them, and they do operate in a slum. I think something ideal would be to have maybe the urban gardening project with them, or something that kind of gives them a way to expand on the skills of the young people, but then also they can have more extracurricular activities attached to that space. So setting up a social enterprise or doing some sort of business venture has been something that we've considered, but the regulations and sort of delivery of that is much more complicated when you have a nonprofit setting, which has lots of young people involved. So I think the plan is to continue working with them and sort of see what it is that they intend to do and how they intend to expand. And that's how we work, we grow with our partners. So there's another question which is coming directly. What challenge, being associated with Green Shoots for nearly 10 years, what challenges other than the obvious funding and the current COVID do you face that needs to be overcome? So that is a good question. And it's true, I have been part of Green Shoots for 10 years. Plus or minus a few where I thought I'd just leave and I had to come back. And then, yes, I think funding, it's true that funding is a challenge, but I think what's key is making sure that we're able to diversify our sources of funding, so not always relying on the same. Right now, Green Shoots is, I would say, 80% to 90% supported through grants. And applying for the same projects and the same grants can always get quite tough. So we always try to diversify our sources and see how we can incorporate some form of monetization, which would feed into supporting the work. And I think, but other than sort of funding and current COVID, some of the challenges is the kind of making sure that we are always on the same page with our partners. And I think that usually comes with making sure that you and the partner are growing at the same pace. You're sharing the same vision. And that requires a lot of investment in monitoring of the projects, but then also evaluation activities. One of the things that COVID has done is it has made all of us sit in our houses, but it's also meant that we haven't communicated with our partners in the same way. When we would be seeing them at least once a year, or maybe even twice a year if we were lucky, we would have a better rapport in terms of making sure that everyone's got that shared vision. That was one challenge that COVID sort of presented to us, but I think it's something that you have to be more mindful of and pay more attention towards. And I have another question.
Maybe if you don't mind, Munzi, I'll add up on that.
Yeah, please.
Grant funding obviously tends to be the primary financing way for a lot of charities, and indeed it's also been for us. But we've also tried to build kind of more sustainable financing ways. The volunteering programs actually was a big step in that direction, because what's happening is you are sending people to have experiences in the field, and there's a small contribution that goes directly to the program. So the program basically become income generating all of a sudden. Now, of course, with COVID, that's been kind of put on hold. But we've also worked on social entrepreneurship, and an integral part of our food and agriculture program is that it's not called just food and agriculture, it's called food and agriculture and social entrepreneurship. Because we look at our Agritech Center in Cambodia as a place where we have an opportunity to incubate social enterprises, to promote small businesses amongst the local community, and that it will also be a source of income for the center itself. And last but not least, and Munise, of course, touched on that in the very last slide of the video, it's about regenerative agriculture. Regenerative agriculture is the kind of agriculture that, as I said before, kind of restore that symbiotic relationship with the soil. So you look after the soil and the soil looks after you. Through regenerative agriculture, what you do is you capture CO2 emissions, okay? By treating the soil the right way, you capture CO2 emissions. So you are basically, you become a firefighter in the fight against CO2 emissions and climate change. And for that, you get rewarded. This is an opportunity to turn the Agritech Center into a training platform to train the local smallholder farmers in Cambodia into ambassadors of this regenerative agriculture, and to also turn the center into, again, revenue generating platform. So all these are new approaches, and approaches which we believe are completely embedded in a more sustainable way of doing things.
Yeah, there's another question which asks about including technology in areas for either supporting local farming or extend towards medical aid. Do you have any plans to expand on this? So as you were mentioning, working with local farmers, I do get a lot of interest from people talking about technology and sort of having kind of smart features within farms. And while that is very exciting, it's very far removed from our reality where we work in Cambodia. We don't have running water. We also don't have electricity. We're hooked to solar. And there are ways that we would work in technology, but keeping it affordable. And the idea is to have low tech, but high impact form of technology. So introducing regenerative practices, introducing ways that help farmers improve the environment with very little cost to them is our mode of operation at the moment. It should not feel like they have to invest a lot of dollars or hundreds of dollars to achieve a result. That is what we practice at the Agritech Center. But and that's, I think, the way to sort of invite people to visit our space and see how it is. And that goes for us sitting here in the West, but also all the farmers. It's a demonstration site. They can come and they can see and they can adapt any tech that we are using, be it water filtration to biogas to smaller methods of like earth block making to construct their houses. But when we speak about tech, and something we have been looking at for green shoots as part of expansion or growth is looking at it for our healthcare programs. We are hoping to develop either a phone app or something that allows us to have a kind of digital health platform, which we will provide through our partners and it would be patient-centered, which means the provision is to improve treatment or the provision of treatment for patients. And finally, another agriculture-related question, which is great for me, is using agroforestry within South Asian countries. So agroforestry is, there's a sound. So agroforestry is the provision of, is the delivery of agriculture and including forests and sort of to have more of a natural approach. And yes, that is something that we do, that is something that we promote. And that would be something part of our regenerative training, where we would have lots of farms practicing that. And then we could maximize on those volumes and sort of have those numbers as, carbon sequestering sites.
Thank you. There's also another question to do with qualifications for volunteers. So what kind of qualifications do volunteers should have not to be a burden, kids and olds? Or how long are the programs as well?
Okay, great. Yeah, so for the volunteers, we don't, we have different types of volunteers. We have healthcare volunteers, which obviously require the associated qualifications to either be a doctor working in infectious diseases or nurses or pharmacists. And then the other volunteers that we have in Cambodia is for, those are much more broad, and they range from anything from business school students looking for a placement for a few months overseas to people that are spending 2 or 3 weeks within Cambodia and then sort of passing through. Trustees have visited us with actually their kids. So in terms of qualifications, we don't require a lot, but in terms of kind of hardiness and sort of the ability to do lots of physical activity and be out in the sun is more of a requirement. We'll speak more about those on Thursday, but the programs range from anything from 2-3 weeks to it can be a few months, depending on what it is the interest is in. For business school students, they require two months of being attached to an NGO. So that's how long the program was. Any more? Yeah. There is some. Cool. I don't think there are any more questions, but if somebody else would like to sort of give their comments online, or Jean-Marc, if you have any other questions for me that I might have missed, then please do kind of include them.
Well, actually, okay, so maybe a cheeky question.
Yeah.
Best and worst experiences over those last 10 years?
So I'm going to answer them, then you too.
In a very diplomatic way.
I think for me, hands down, the best experience has been when we did the inauguration for the Agri-Tech Centers. It was in December 2018. And it was, there was lots of volunteers on site, but we also had sort of a party planned for nearly 90 people. And it was seeing the Agri-Tech Center, something that we've been working towards for almost a year and a half, which I think, now that I think about it, is a quick turnaround for projects such as this, where it is completely donation led. It involves a lot of eco building and sort of eco structures. And so normally those sites would take much longer, but I think it just shows the perseverance and sort of the involvement of organizations such as Square and Partners that would come and donate designs, hold events for us. So I think the single moment was the day of the inauguration, when you're sort of on the site and you're suddenly seeing the structure and seeing everybody there, and you sort of think that's 1 year, 1.5 years of work from being on this site, and it was just an overgrown field of sort of green, to then looking back, you know, all the people that have come and tested things or done little things for us. And then, yeah, sort of created this building, which is now for us to continue and function and make sure that it's sort of the space for a community that it's set out to be. And also this feeling of now we need to get the people and be active. So as in, it was this moment where you realized the building was not the whole work. The work is now. That was probably the easier part, where suddenly there's the money and there's the people that will build it. The real job is once you have to go out. So it's probably the worst moment as well, when you realize that, oh, now I have to do all this work. But I think one moment, and I'm glad Jürgen is not on the call, but I think one of my most fearful moments was a workshop that we were doing in Myanmar. And we were sending all these emails, as always, coordinating calendars and diaries. And then suddenly Jürgen sends me an email and he says, oh, I think I've missed my flight, because everybody seems to be in Bangkok waiting to get on a flight to Yangon, but I'm still in Germany. And I'd never met Jürgen. And this was the first workshop event that I was doing. And suddenly there was sort of panic. But then obviously he got his flight and then he made it the next day. We changed the schedule. But those 5-10 minutes, I just thought, I don't know what I'm going to do.
You survived.
Yeah, we survived. But it was that single sort of 5-10 minutes of just blind panic where I wasn't sure how the next day was going to look like. How about you? I think it's, if I was going to say it, so you.
I think when I kind of stopped getting directly involved in Green Shoot, so in the early 2015, the best feeling was that it continued, and it continued to do even greater things, even though, let's say, if the money flow was reduced, the quality of the contents of the programs just went through the roof. And that was fantastic. And the delivery of workshops, quality workshops in Myanmar, that, few other organizations were providing, and definitely not for that kind of, for that price. So I think it's a testament to all your fantastic work, and the commitment of all our trustees and specialists, the amazing doctors, architects that have been working with us, the students, some of whom are on this call. So I think it's been phenomenal, and that continues every day, every week, every month, every year after that. The worst time, sometimes, I guess, when you work with people on a project like this, sometimes you all have your own expectations, what you expect to get out of this. And what is sometimes frustrating for me is when expectations are very selfish. Okay? So people don't necessarily want to commit themselves for the beauty of the project or the impact it can have on other people. But because there is something that they want to get out of it, something a little bit more material, and that is of course disappointing. And in the world of charities, you have a lot of service providers that are trying to make a lot of money out of the charity, and they kind of rely on the fact that charities have to be appealing to donors and need to look very professional to these donors so that they can get more money. that's not the way we have chosen to embrace. On the contrary, I mean, we are of course trying to be professional, but we work with fantastic people who have donated so much of their programming time. Event organizers, IT specialists, lawyers. I mean, they have donated the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of pounds over the years for the benefit of Green Shoots, and that has been amazing.
Yeah, we've managed to work with organizations such as Trust Law and who have connected us with organizations such as Reed Smith, but also lawyers in Cambodia to kind of help us through a lot of legal processes. And it's true, you're right in saying that at times the kind of there is selfishness involved or understanding partners or priorities change for partners in time. And we are committed to monitoring our work on a regular basis. All our projects go through rigorous monitoring and evaluation procedure. And that's how we sort of troubleshoot our work and see where the problems lie. We collect a lot of data on a kind of quarterly to monthly basis, and it allows us to measure our impact and at times make those graphs that I just showed you. But also it helps us to see, are we setting out to meet the targets that we really want? And I think if I had, as it is a celebration event, and I have been involved with Green Shoots for the past 10 years, if I was to say what attracted me, and it was definitely not the microfinance beginnings the organization had, because I am nowhere near microfinance inclined. I always hope I will eventually, but it was their commitment to sort of impact assessment and kind of making sure that, the stakeholders that are involved are the donors that give us money, the people that we promise to do work for, and those needs need to be met on both sides. So it's been something that my day job in London involves a lot, which is fundraising, but then also analyzing kind of data that we receive from our partners, and then making sure it's communicated to our donors. That's sort of the chain that we sit within. And so I think the initial kind of commitment, and also the kind of freedom that Jean-Marc gave me early on, much when I was very, very young, on kind of developing monitoring and evaluation protocols for the work in Cambodia, seeing, it's a blank canvas, how can we measure our impact? So I think just having that opportunity a long time ago was quite good. And I think that's something that, we will continue to do for the rest of the week. And it's the reason that this event can be planned is because we were doing this, we were collecting data, we were collecting information from our partners, from the people we work with. We do focus group discussions with them to see, are we setting out to meet those targets we have? And also as an organization, how can we grow and how can we become something that, one of the biggest drawbacks of COVID has been, there has been no travel. And if I've been speaking about a project that involves volunteering and fellowships and workshops, it's all travel based. There is no activity that we could do. We did a lot of emergency fundraising for our projects in Myanmar. We sort of did PPE related fundraising for them as they set up COVID clinics, but we couldn't do any of the training and medical education work. So we spent a lot of last year trying to see how we could enter digital health, how we could develop apps which surpass this need for travel. We are sitting here today on a Zoom call talking about this because we can't go and see each other in a large room. So I think another thing to celebrate during this week would be this Green Shoots' ability to change strategies, be more flexible, and all of that comes from being a small organization and probably staying small, but increasing our impact, I think. Would you agree, Jean-Marc?
Yeah, small, nimble.
Great. I think there's another question, which is, how do you imagine the organization within 10 years? Jean-Marc, do you want to have a go at it?
Yeah, probably I'll have lots of hair thanks to
I'll give you some
sustainable implants. No, I think, you know, we are always destined to kind of remain relatively small, because that's the way we can adapt to circumstances and to the challenges. And you know, more than a year ago, nobody really expected COVID would change the way things take place. So we always have to ready ourselves for the unexpected. But with all the brilliant minds, all the people associated with Green Shoots, we can always think of new ways to adapt ourselves. And our objective remain always the same: fight poverty, help those communities that we have associated our faith with for all these years, and continue to do that in the next 10 years, and doing that in the most sustainable way. And one thing that we always have to be faithful to, and you know, as members of the Green Shoots family and community, this is also something that you should keep us accountable, is to be always dedicated to that sustainability. So in other words, it's one thing to teach people about sustainability, but you also have to apply those same principles to yourself. Okay, so when there are some issues, you don't just throw more money at it. You look at the way you can do it in the most cost effective, and you look at new ways of approaching problems and solving issues. That's also sustainability, and I hope that we remain faithful to that in the next 10 years, and hopefully we'll have more than one agri-tech center. And these centers will be places where a certain model, a relationship with nature, will be thriving and will be beautifully illustrated, but also there will be incubation center for social enterprises for the local communities.
Yeah, I think if I had to answer the question, imagine the organization within 10 years, I think having this status as the incubation center for agribusiness for Cambodia would definitely be the way to describe it. The communities that we work with are extremely rural, and they are, a lot of young people see the only way out is to either leave the village or be a farmer. But trying to bring this understanding of a supply chain of what it takes for a farm produce to reach the market or an urban area, and all these parcel it off as little businesses and make sure that, you know, young people are interested in those. And that's where tech comes in. That's where value adding to a product comes in. That's where they get a better price for their labor comes in. So I think looking at it in those terms would be how we should see ourselves in the next 10 years. And then also being the organization that sort of is exemplar of this model. So having similar agri-tech centers, partnering with established ones where we bring our model so we can sort of revitalize the rural economies. And I think there's another question, it's quite long. So this is more focused towards our work in India and looking at more remote digital contributions, such as educational provisions via learning platforms through volunteers. I think that's, and then content matching.
Can you read the question because we can't see it?
Yeah, okay. So it says, do you see more remote digital contributions to the ELSE program? So that's in India. Being that educational provision can be made via learning platforms. Can it be made, can some people volunteer and provide workshops? And this can also possibly be in the area of entrepreneurship within the local environment. I think that's do you have to add to this, Jean-Marc?
Sorry?
Do you want to add to this question?
No, go for it.
I think it's a great idea, but the way it would be something that would be excellent to approach our local partner directly. Our relationship in India is quite different to the rest of our work, where the local partner is pretty much in charge of and very involved in their own strategy. We are sort of more facilitating of sponsorships, making sure that they have an income stream from the UK, but all the decision making is very localized, and so this is something that we can refer to them, because I think it would be nice to see how they've been running the center for the last few months. They are in Delhi, and India has been struck quite badly in the last couple of months, and so yeah. So I think it's basically, it is a hot topic to have education available via online learning platforms. But I think when it comes to farming and agriculture, I feel still that being on the land and doing it that way is beneficial, and anything else is just an alternative. It's not, it cannot be a replacement.
And there's also another question for Faith.
Oh yeah, I think I answered that, saying that we can do this in an educational setting in urban areas, but for phase and agricultural work, going virtual sort of learning tools, the community that we work with might be a little far away from that. I think what would be good is to see, having gone through a year of virtual learning in some settings for these schools, how those communities have changed and evolved. I do feel that the makeup of a lot of the villages and local communities we work with in Cambodia will change, because lots of migrant workers have come back, but they're sort of male and young people that don't have jobs. And also a lot of people are more tech savvy, because a lot of schools went online. So either they didn't go to school for this whole year, or they were able to access online learning, which I think a lot of our partner organizations that we know in Cambodia have been supporting, such as Children of the Mekong, and Marcus is here, he's a board member there, and so is John Mark. Great. So yeah, I think one of the sort of, going back to the question of how do we see ourselves in 10 years, I think the next year we have to sort of take stock of how the communities that we work with, how much they have changed, because, you know, our lives have changed in COVID. So these places, have they become more cut off, or have they become more connected? And how do we respond to that now, you know? So I think whenever we go back to sort of being in the field, we get a better understanding of how our communities are changing, have changed. With Myanmar, I think, you know, it's a much more of a tough question to answer, because not only are they facing sort of COVID, but the current political crisis is paralyzing the healthcare system. And it's predicted that a lot of their numbers will be really set back the targets that they've reached for HIV and TB. So gearing up to support our partner in recuperating those numbers and targets would be something that we would commit to for the next at least few years.
I'll add just a little something. I mean, in Cambodia, so in the area where we built the center, if I remember, my first trip in that area was about 17 years ago, 18 years ago. And at the time, the roads were awful. I mean, truly awful. It was kind of clay. You had holes everywhere, and it was not unusual that the cars from both directions would drive on the same side of the road, and that was the side of the road without holes. So it was constantly shift. So you can imagine traffic both ways like that, and you had everything on the road. Okay, so it took a while for us to access those places that were more remote. Now things have changed. All that time, you know, there's been money in the infrastructure, so the roads are a bit more reliable. We can access the Agritech Center much faster than we could in the past. But I think the most formidable change is the fact that you have internet access in Samrong, the local town. And in Agritech, you have agriculture, but you also have tech. And it's not just about the technology, making agriculture more sustainable. It's also technology in general. Solar installation to power laptops and mobile phones in the center. The opportunity to have a better kind of Wi-Fi in the center itself, and as Louise mentioned, a project also for an app, phone app, to help follow the kind of services, medical services provided to patients. Now, this can be declinated in many different versions, and these apps won't just be an opportunity to deliver services, to deliver help and support to those communities, but they also be an opportunity to for us to cover some of our costs, and especially in the monitoring and evaluation, impact assessment. So again, you know, it points to sustainability, and this is very exciting. And for those of you who are familiar with traveling to remote areas, you know that in the middle of Africa, in the middle of Asia, or anywhere for that matter, you will have people with mobile phones doing things that were not possible 15, 10, or even 5 years ago. And this is basically how things are changing so fast. And we are part of the change. So it's exciting.
Yeah. So great. So I'll kind of wrap up this day today. And thank you all for joining. There's people watching on Facebook apparently. So thank you there as well. And yeah, so the rest of the week we'll go live at the same time using the same Zoom link. So if anything that we've said today excites you, just join every day. You'll learn something new. You'll want to volunteer, or you'll want to maybe try vegetables in a different way, I think, although we won't do recipes. But yeah, we'll show you all the food that we're growing, and then also introduce you to our partners every day and have more discussions. So I think, yeah, it's going to be kind of an exciting week, and then we'll have lots of videos, and yeah, great. So I'll say goodbye now, and if anybody has a few last comments, please raise your hand or keep them for the rest of the week, and we'll see you then. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.